Okay, so this is going to be chapter 12, central nervous system, part 3, which is the beginning of your PowerPoint CNS part B. So this is where we're getting into part B, all right? And let's share screen. Let us take a quick look at the PowerPoint so it can help guide us through. Okay, so again, this is part B. So we covered in great depth part A, so we're now looking at part B. So let's take a look at these cerebral hemispheres in terms of cerebral white matter. Again, when you think of white matter, you should think of, oh yeah, myelinated fibers, myelinated, myelinated, myelinated. Some not, it does have some non-myelinated, but mostly myelinated. When you think gray matter, think non-myelinated, okay? Now, so that's the first thing that comes up here. Now, cerebral white matter, it has three basic regions of cerebral hemispheres. Three basic regions of the cerebral hemispheres. Okay, well, how do we classify these three? How do we classify them? We classify them according to the direction that they run. You may be like, what do you mean run? Well, the pathway in which they are connected to point A and point B. That is how we define them, right? So by association, commensal, and projection fibers. If we take a look at this, you can then, if you look at this image, now you're saying, oh, okay, now I understand what he means by run. Here are the association fibers, commensal fibers, right? Now, let's go back and say, okay, like this is stuff I'll ask you on your exam. Okay, how do we identify the association fibers? Okay, well, they're in the same hemisphere. They're going to be in the same. So either going to be in the left hemisphere or they're going to be in the right. So if it's in the, when you see that keyword, those keywords, same hemisphere, you're like association fibers. Okay, so definition: associate horizontal running fibers that connect different parts of the same hemisphere. So you have the brain, right? Longitudinal fissure, and then within that hemisphere, they're connecting up part A and part B. That's your association. Commensal fibers, horizontal fibers that connect gray matter of two hemispheres, not within the same, but connection of gray matter within two hemispheres. Okay. Now this one, projection. The way you can think of this one is, all right, you're a student, you're sitting in your desk, and you're looking at a lecture, and there is a projector. And you look up and you see the projector. When you see that projector, think that's lower brain and then down to spinal cord. Those are projections. Projections. You can think of it like that, like projector going up. Here's the device that's providing it, and it's coming down information. So lower brain to spinal cord, projections. So know the association, commensal, projection. Know those three. What I'm starting to do, just so you can see this, in case you're wondering, this is going to be a lab content, and I'm going to share them. Also, for lab exams, what we do is, I've talked with instructor Pettis, like, we will tell you which figures are going to be on your lab exam. Exactly, we'll tell you which figures. The reason why I feel that's okay, and some may be like, why would you do that? Is my philosophy is that, well, there's plenty of information to learn, right? We're never in a drought of information. Just never are. So I look at it as, hey, the least thing you can do is tell them which ones to study. There's a lot of information they can have to remember on just one image. Why not just tell them which images we are going to be testing them on? So that's my philosophy. So I don't think it makes it, I don't think I'm doing it because I'm a nice guy, or I don't think it's anything like that. I just think it's something that's should be a little bit more fair. So I don't know. That's what I think. People can criticize me for it, but I think just it's what I do. This is also a lab, something you'll do a lab. I prefer, just in case you want to know, I prefer this image for a lab exam over this one, because I want to make I have to think, I have to make darn sure that my arrow is pointing in the right location, so there is no student confusion. I like this image, but as your professor, I have to say, I'm like, you know what, I like this image, but there's risk associated with putting it up there. Meaning, where is this line? Where's this one pointing at? Does this line go all the way over here? Or does it stop right there? See, I don't like that. I don't like to get students in a confusing situation. Also, here's a tip for your lab exams. If an image like this does occur, I will most likely pick something that's very distinct without confusion. Follow me? I'm not going to get into some of this other area where you may not be sure where is the arrow pointing. But I like this one here because it's more simplified. Just giving you an idea. You want to get into the head, the mind of your professors. You always want to do that for every class. Get into their minds. And I'm trying to teach you that when I look at a lab exam, I have to say, we have to be as clear, cut, reduce any types of questions that students may have, and they need to know exactly where we are pointing for the identification of a particular organ. All right, here's a lab one for sure. Let's talk about this basal nuclei, ganglia, right? So it has multiple functions. It influences muscle movements, cognition, emotion, regulate the intensity of slow or stale type movements, filter out incorrect and inappropriate responses, can filter out incorrect or inappropriate responses. And it can also inhibit antagonistic or unnecessary movements. So when we look, for example, at Parkinson's disease or Huntington's disease, these are disorders of basal nuclei, where there is the inability to inhibit unnecessary movements, bodies, so forth. So I kind of put a little star here, but this is definitely important. Now I'm going to stop the share because I'm going to show you something on YouTube, and I can't really do that. So I'm going to stop recording. So I'm going to stop share. I'm going to pause the recording. We're going to now start the resume recording. We're going to share, go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, here we are. All right, so we left off right here. This is on Parkinson's disease. Make sure you have a really good idea of what this is. I also might bring in a guest speaker. He's a neurotoxicologist. Hopefully we can have a Zoom with him. He's in India. I have another friend who did work in neurotoxicology. He is in Europe. And I'm going to see if we can maybe get one of them to come in and talk a little bit about Parkinson's. I have a friend who's done a lot of research in the field of that. He was a CEO for pharmaceutical industry, and it would be amazing to have this really smart, bright scientist come and speak to you about neuroscience in terms of Parkinson's. The diencephalon. Diencephalon. What do you, can you, am I on the, do you see diencephalon by any chance? Okay, just want to make sure it was sharing properly. Thank you. All right. Diencephalon, there are three paired gray matter structures you need to know. They are the thalamus, hypothalamus, and epithalamus. So diencephalon. Three paired gray matter structures, thalamus, hypothalamus, and epithalamus. So let's briefly take a look at where diencephalon, thalamus, epithalamus, hypothalamus. Thalamus, epithalamus, hypothalamus. Okay, so these right here. That's what we're talking about, the three parts in terms of the diencephalon. Now, let us take a quick look at thalamus. This part right here, it kind of looks at this little egg-shaped structure, thalamus. Dive in a little bit into a little more into it. Now remember, if you see me skip images, it's because I'm not going to really go into those. I'm going to have a conference call, conference Zoom with Instructor Pettis. We're going to talk about the approach, but I'm ahead of him. That's where I want it to be. Now I'm going to instruct him on the images that we want for our lab exam. He's going to know that because I'm going to tell him which ones they're going to be on, and I'm telling you here, and you're going to get a PDF through an announcement saying these are the figures. Okay, and so it's going to be very transparent. So really, it's going to be up to the individual to put in the work, put in the time, the dedication to crank out the desired result. But my main function as your lecture professor is to talk about how things work and what are some of the functions associated with them. Now, the thalamus, the main function is to act as a relay station for information. So a relay station, meaning it's going to be getting information and relaying it, transferring this information. So some of the things it's responsible for is regulation of emotion. Regulation of emotions. These are some of the impulses. It also has to do with memory and sensory integration. What is that again? Integration? What is integration? To integrate. What does that mean? Integration.
To gather information to make a response.
Yeah, so yeah, it's going to gather, then kind of decode, figure out what is this information that I have, and then you're right, make a response. So yeah, that's really good. So overall, it acts to mediate sensation, motor activities, certain forms of cortical arousal, learning, and memory. Now, located below the thalamus. So let's take a quick look at this. Let's go back, kind of go thalamus. We're going to use the cartoon images. It's a little easier because of the different colors. Thalamus, underneath thalamus, hypothalamus. The hypothalamus. Now, this one is very important. Very, very important. It is the main visceral control and regulating center for vital homeostasis. What does that just mean? It is responsible for regulation, and through that regulation process, it is going to help you have homeostasis. What is homeostasis? That means that you're breathing right, you are having the right blood pressure, all these other metabolic activities are occurring right. Insulin, sugar levels, all the things, the amazing things that take place in most humans without them even knowing. So this is super important. It, again, is the chief homeostasis control. If you have problems in the hypothalamus, or if anyone has problems with the hypothalamus, it is going to cause some serious adverse effects. Serious. And there may not just, and notice I was plural. It's most likely will not be one adverse effect, but most likely be more than one. So, hypothalamus, again, like I mentioned, blood pressure, heart rates, sugar, all these things, you're not consciously thinking about that. That is the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system. So it's controlling that. It's doing this for you without you consciously having to measure that and get readings. And it is behind the scene gathering all this information, helping you study. The hypothalamus is awesome. So here, examples that they give you here: blood pressure, rate and force of heartbeat, digestive tract mobility, pupil size. That's just to name a few of the things it can do. It also can initiate physical responses to emotion, fear, rage, biological rhythms, and other things as well. Now, if you think of the hypothalamus in terms of regulation, it is your thermostat. It's going to control your internal temp. Let's say you have an infection, right? And of any source. It could be bacterial, it could be viral, you have an infection. And one of the defenses of the body is to communicate, to send a response to the hypothalamus. Then the hypothalamus is going to gather that information and say, whoa, hey, I got to crank up the heat here. I have an infection going on. And it's like your thermostat. It's going to crank up the heat. And hopefully it will create an environment that will not be suitable for bacterial or viral replication, right? So it is the thermostat. So super cool. So again, body temperature, hunger, water, thirst, sleep cycles. So it does a lot. It has a lot to do with homeostasis. Now, if it's going to be dealing with homeostasis and blood sugar and all this stuff, well, guess what has to come into play? The endocrine system, the system that also is largely involved with sending hormones out through the body. Hormones are chemical messengers that either cause something for a result to occur in terms of maybe amplification of a certain event or reduction of a certain event. It could be positive feedback. It could be negative feedback in terms of homeostasis. So hypothalamus. Situations where hypothalamus disturbances can occur. Well, everything we said that it does, well, if it's damaged or if there is some sort of tumor or there has to be surgery in the area, well, then those things are at risk. Now, in the field of neuroscience, how do we know? How do we know that the hypothalamus does these things? How do we know this? Well, it's because we've had to either we know someone, so someone has damage to it, so after they die there's an autopsy and we notice that damage, or we provide an actual molecule that's going to do damage to a specific area, and then we wait to see what's going to happen. That is how we largely know what the brain does, is because through experimentation we've, what you can call, knock out a certain region, and then we wait and see what happens. And then we're like, oh man, we knocked out the hypothalamus and all this happened. And then you say, that's what the hypothalamus does. So that's how we know these things. And of course, some of this done in humans, but majority of it is done in animal studies. So, severe body wasting, obesity, sleep disturbance, dehydration, emotional imbalances. So these are just a few. Again, tumors, radiation surgery, trauma, all these things can have a serious effect in terms of hypothalamus disturbances. Epithalamus. Epithalamus. Let's go take a quick look and see what epithalamus. Where is this? Epithalamus, where are you? Let's go with what we know. Thalamus. Underneath thalamus, hypothalamus. All right. And then kind of, sort of, little bit toward underneath, but not so much, I guess. We can call it epithalamus, right? Right here, epithalamus. Let's see what that's going to do. The brain. Epithalamus. Now, this contains a pineal gland. Well, what does this gland do? Very, very important gland. It secretes melatonin that helps regulate sleep and awake cycles. Melatonin. Not to be confused with melanin. Melanin is the skin pigment that results
A
in color.
pigment?
What's that? Go ahead, Blanca.
I just was saying that melanin is a pigment on the skin.
Yes, yes. Melanin is pigment of skin. So those that are of lighter complexion have less concentration of melanites. Those are the cells that produce it. Those that have are darker skin have more concentration of those cells that produce melanin. But do not confuse it for melatonin, because I like to throw that in there and love to be like, ha 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 ha. It's the students that fall for the trap. Now, this is largely has to do with, since it regulates sleep cycles, has a lot to do with light. And today, most people have phones and they love to lay in their beds or whatever technologies they have. And they get this light. This light goes into their eyes and it inhibits melatonin. And then they wonder why. Why do they struggle with sleep? It's because they're not allowing the proper cycle to take place. This gland it does not work like a flip of a switch. It does not do this. Let me show you. Your gland does not do this. In terms of its production, in terms of the pineal gland and the production or secretion of melatonin, it is a gradual process, right? The sun comes down slowly, right? The sun just doesn't go whoop and then night, oh my god, time to sleep. Like what the heck? It doesn't work like that, right? The sun comes up, you stretch, right? And then if you have a regular, what, normal job or life, some people do night shift, right? And you go around and the sun slowly comes down. Okay, that's a natural sleep cycle. But in today's world, with lights that we turn on and off, we struggle. We struggle. The business of sleeping aids is doing great. Sleep aids are they've been and they're I think they're just going to keep on continuing doing well as a business. So many Americans struggle at their own because the cause of their own fingertips, usually with devices of light. And then they look at the time on their device and say, time to go to bed. Why can't I sleep? Why can't I sleep? I don't understand it. Well, you don't have enough melatonin. But then people think they're really smart. So they stop and they're like, I'm going to go take some melatonin gummies. So they go, like, pop in a gummy or two, and then they wait. Well, they don't understand that it takes time for that to work. So then when it's ready to get up for your job, or you got to take the kids to school, or when they're at school, you feel really tired. Well, because you didn't take the melatonin way in advance. Okay, so that's melatonin, epithalamus. Let's take a quick look in brainstem. The brainstem consists of three regions. Okay, we're gonna stop here on brainstem because I want to make sure that our presentation doesn't go beyond. I don't want it to go long. Some students, due to their Wi-Fi or internet situation, it takes them time to download these videos, and I want to stop here. This is slide 29. Slide 29. So when we come back at 4 o'clock, yes, at 4, we're gonna kick off here on the brainstem, and we should be able to finish the rest. There are 60 slides. We should be able to get through it in terms of function and certain regions. So we're gonna come back and hit the brainstem. All right, so I'll see everybody back here around 4 o'clock. All right, so I'll take care for now. Bye-bye.